We're looking at a CNN reaction of the current unemployment rates for black women.
If you want to know the direction of the jobs market, pay attention to the black unemployment numbers. That's not my guidance. That's the guidance from economists and experts who know much more about this than I. But let me explain. Right now, the U.S. unemployment rate is at 4.3%. We just learned that very few jobs were added in August, about 22,000. That's not good. If you were to describe this via text, you'd send a red alarm emoji. Now, for black workers, the data is worse. For now, another month, the unemployment rate is going up. It's now 7.5%. That's the highest it's been since October of 2021. And it's a number we've been watching ever since it was 6.8% in June. It's 2 alarm emojis. You dig even deeper, and you'll find that black women are disproportionately struggling right now. The jobless rate for black women is at 6.7%. The last time it was that high, September of 2021, back during the pandemic. Add one more red alarm emoji.
Unemployment numbers are critical for election periods and campaign purposes. Presidents want their unemployment rates to be low and their job rates to be high. Recently, President Trump even fired his director of labor statistics because he felt that the numbers were inaccurate, because they're really, really important to candidates to show what they've been doing for the country.
Stephanie, let me start with you. 22,000 jobs
in
August. June revised down now, the first month of job losses in 5 years. The president promised the golden era for America. Where is it?
I mean, ultimately, we have to just be honest and say it doesn't look good, which I know people don't expect me to say, but the reality is right now, because of all the cutbacks in the federal government, it is going to hit black women disproportionately right now because of how much we are employed. That being said, I do believe that it is going to bounce back with the new businesses and new jobs that will be coming, but I think we need to give it time. I don't think we've given it enough time.
What she just said was really interesting. She said that because there's so many black women currently employed in the government, that these new DOGE cuts, these new federal worker cuts are actually going to proportionally affect black women more than other groups because there's so many black women currently employed.
That's something we heard from the Commerce Secretary as well. Let's play what Howard Lutnick said.
We've seen that in all sorts of agencies throughout this government. The people, the holdovers from the Biden administration they're just bent against the president's success. They're rooting against America and against Donald Trump, and that's got to end. So he can't replace somebody, 2 weeks ago, and you expect fundamental change.
Latasha, he says, give it time.
The challenge with this is that when you look at black women, we, particularly in terms of women, we are, in terms of participation in the labor market, we're 60% more than all of our women counterparts of the labor market. But what's interesting in federal jobs, we're about 11.7%, which means that's in parity of our population, right? But when you look in the private sector, we're less than 1.8% when you look at higher management jobs. So what we have seen is that federal jobs have actually created a pathway, an opportunity that black women, it demonstrates that when black women are given an opportunity, that there are federal protections that allow us to matriculate, that what you see is that we're able to get representation. What he's saying around that we're supposed to just play on the market, but what we're seeing is an underrepresentation in the market, that oftentimes we're underpaid in the market, we're in entry-level jobs, you do not see the same kind of economic stability that we've seen with federal employment.
Okay, so what she's saying is that there are a lot of black women employed inside the government, but there aren't a strong number of black women who have higher management opportunities in the private sector. Director Lutnick's like, hey, we need to take off these federal jobs and then let the market play out. Don't have DEI, and then that it'll proportionally go where it's supposed to in the market. And she's concerned that if you don't have DEI, certain policies, certain things, that black women aren't going to be able to have a fair share in the private sector.
So ultimately, a lot of the hiring I feel that's happened within the federal government was to check boxes for DEI, not necessarily because this was just perfect for them. And I only say that because of how many black women have been employed. And I think that's part of the reason is we're seeing the layoffs that we're seeing and the unemployment, because that's how they got hired in the first place.
I think the interesting thing about that is that in terms of federal jobs, that is merit-based, that people actually are able to keep their jobs or even to literally ascend based on being merit-based. You don't see that in the private sector. So I think it's really to say that black women working in these jobs is to check a box. It ignores the fact that is a merit base.
Well, to a degree, because I do know for federal government, depending on what your history is, if you have worked in the military, if you're black, you do get extra points when it comes to hiring. And so being black in general will push people up when it comes to hiring. Being a black woman will push people up when it comes to hiring.
Yeah, can I pause? I think we have to think about the.
Before we go on with her point, I do want to explain DEI. So the liberal take on DEI is that DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, is a way to help people to elevate beyond their minority status. They feel that some minority statuses have a hard time elevating the marketplace. Maybe there's historic reasons and backgrounds that's been keeping those groups down. So there needs to be these policies that help encourage the government and private sector to hire more of these kinds of people. The conservative argument against it is saying that whenever you help these people because of their demographics instead of just their competency, it actually negative affects the people they're going against who are not in those minority classes. So you have other people who aren't in minority classes who, because you helped elevate that person because of their skin or their background or wherever they're from, that other person that they're going against is thereby pushed down because they're being pushed up for that reason. And they believe that it needs to be a 100% competency merit-based system to where it's just based off of how well you do the job.
I have to disagree with you. I think a lot of the women who have been losing their jobs have played critical roles in government.
But if it was
and it's
really
beyond
critical,
DEI.
if it was
it's
really
beyond
critical,
DEI.
they would still have their job. It wasn't that critical.
No, they don't have their
disagree.
jobs because now there's a policy in place that really has been racialized. It's not. We're looking at a space that how were they able to ascend? It wasn't about the checking of box. It was hard work. It was. We know that in a culture as in America, when have black women ever been given something just because we're checking a box? The women, we are the cornerstone of this economy all across it.
Well, I hear you, but I can also say that one of my first jobs was for the federal government, and I was very clear that I got pushed up ahead of people because I was black and I could check the box.
Well, let me ask you this, because there's a gender economist, Katika Roy, who calculated between February and July that 319,000 black women lost their jobs in the private and public sector. In that same period, job increases for white men was 365,000. There were 176,000 job gains for Hispanic women. There were 142,000 job gains for white women. And so when you suggest that these black women were in jobs to check a box, reconcile that with the increases for these other demographics and communities.
Well,
those jobs were earned and they deserved better jobs and deserved to have more jobs, while the hundreds of thousands of black women were just there to be pushed along and check a box?
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying, because
Okay.
ultimately I think we all can agree that DEI has not just helped black women. So that's in the first place. DEI has helped minorities, women, white women. DEI has helped not just black women, but when it comes to the conversation of federal workers, with us being such a large percentage of federal workers.
It's deeply insulting to say that. It's deeply insulting that when you're looking at federal workers, we make what, 11.7%? That's just in parity of our population. And so that there you have 80%, of more of people that represent different segments of society. So to suggest that black women in some way, that our presence in the federal government has come from just somehow we are checking the box, really undermines the fact that we have been the cornerstone of the labor market in this country.
No, it doesn't. It just looks, that's the way you want to see it. It doesn't. Ultimately, black women were not the only people who were laid off. It's just that the conversation we're having today is around the large percentage of black women, and that is because of how many black women are employed federally. But ultimately, when we talk about people who have still been employed, who have been hired of other ethnicities, of other races, I know for sure, I've seen the conversation on social media of people saying that they're not going back to work yet. I've seen the conversation of people saying that they're going to sit on unemployment. I've seen the conversation of people saying they're going to start businesses. And so ultimately, I don't even think the numbers are completely correct yet. And I don't know if we're going to know that for a few months.
Dalila, let me get you in here, and I'll bring this, that black women bore the brunt of the job losses during the pandemic. They bore the brunt of the job losses of DOGE. And so as we look at this continue in private sector as well, what's that mean on a community economic level, on a home economic level? with black women disproportionately being head of household.
What I don't appreciate about this conversation is I'm all for open conversation about DEI and black women employment and Trump's effects on the economy. I'm all for that. What I'm not for is there being the moderator, this guy over here on the right, who's obviously picked a side, and they have basically 3 against 1. Not a fan.
It's the ripple effect. It's the fact that people can't pay their mortgages. People can't afford to take care of their parents who are sick. They have kids in college. But I want to also mention how, just back to her point about the jobs, the Department of Education had a large amount of black women who were laid off. Many of these women worked in the civil rights divisions. These offices investigated discrimination against black students. There are these real consequential ripple effects that are happening professionally and personally. And we have to keep that in mind.
So do we not think that these jobs will come, as this coming to the state, the Department of Education coming to the states, are we not looking at it as though the jobs will open back up? Are we not looking at it as though it's stopped on a federal level, but it will move to a state level? Are we just ignoring that fact?
No, what we're looking at is that households are being impacted. What we're looking at is
are we going to continue paying people just because we feel bad for them when Doe showed that these divisions...
No, this isn't about feeling bad for them. We're saying that there are credible workers who have actually contributed and continues to
but
contribute
in departments in which we've shown waste. So we can't keep
But how have we proven waste?
waste.
That's not been proven.
We've got to pause here.
I think I'm finally getting where this lady's coming from. She is simply saying that she agrees with the federal cuts. And these federal cuts affect job numbers because people are losing their jobs when there's these federal cuts. And that thereby black women are proportionally, according to their population, are more affected than other populations through these job cuts. So because she agrees with the federal cuts, she's saying a byproduct at the end of the line is that there are more black women affected than other population groups. That seems to make sense what she's saying. Interesting. What do you think? What's your opinion? Put your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with a friend. I'll see you next time.